This deck was built in a lab for me specifically. Welcome back, guys, to another deck profile, another Genesys deck profile. Those of you who have followed my content for any amount of time know that I'm a massive fan of 5Ds, a massive fan of Jack Atlas. Those of you who've seen the cosplay and everything that I do at conventions with my wife. And I'm a huge fan of this strategy. I imported a copy of the structure deck when it first came out in Japan, opened it here on the channel, did videos talking about how the deck works, did a whole primer on the deck talking about all kinds of viable cards and the history of the strategy and everything, and that got outdated pretty quickly as the formats changed and everything. So when this new support was announced, I really wanted to kind of take my time with it. But this new support is very well suited for Genesys format. And if you told me that one of my favorite pet decks of all time would be meta in Genesys format, I would never have believed you. But it's awesome. I'm so excited about it. I want to play this deck as much as humanly possible while it's good. And it took me a while to want to make this video because I wanted to make sure I really felt comfortable with these cards and with this new strategy. And I think I'm there, but I don't get to play Genesys nearly as often as some other people do. Lots of places don't have locals that fire Genesys, and I've been really trying to get locals to fire at my, or to get Genesys to fire at my locals, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes I'm the only one that shows up, and sometimes it's me and my two friends that I drag with me. We don't get a whole tournament going, but I have had some decent testing experience with this, taking it to a couple of tournaments, and I'm overall pretty happy with it. But one of the downsides of this deck is because it is sort of meta within Genesys format, other players are going to be expecting it and generally know what these cards do more than what they used to. This is after the most recent points update, so this is July 2026. We're going to be talking about these cards after they've received a little bit of a points update. But yeah, love this deck. I wanted to kind of give it some special attention after doing, the Rose Dragon deck and the X-Saber deck, which is a little bit easier, a little bit more rogue. This one is quite a bit more powerful now. I actually brought Red Dragon Archfiend to the very first Genesys event that ever fired at my locals. When it was first announced, most of the RDA cards were 0 points, except for Abyss being 20 points and Dissipator being 10. So I just slammed like 3 Called by the Grave in there. I was like, screw it. I want to do my combo uninterrupted, no hand traps. And it was a lot of fun. It was really good even under those circumstances, but obviously it got worse as new, more powerful Genesys strategies came out, and now it got better again as the new support came out. So let's go ahead and get into it. This main deck is going to be pretty standard. There are some card choices that I do feel pretty passionately about, but let's go ahead and talk about it. So obviously we've got 3 of the Power Vice Dragon. So I talked about this when the support was first announced. This is the best starter that this deck has ever seen. It's a 1-card combo. It does everything for the deck. It is insanely powerful, and there are ways in which you can use it not as a starter. So if you have a synchro on the field and you get stopped mid-combo and then you like draw this guy on the following turn, you can still special summon it if you control like 1 Dark Dragon synchro. The battle phase protection is completely negligible, but it's just a way to get the card to mention RDA, so it's searchable by all the cards that search a card that mentions RDA. But yeah, you special this guy for free, searches Resonator. You're usually going to search the new Darkness Resonator, and then make Crimson King, and you'll get that additional normal summon of a Resonator. So fantastic card, and because he's a starter, you don't go through any of your locks or anything like that, and he's searchable by all the cards that search a card that mentions RDA. So the fact that he's a dragon doesn't really matter too much, even though on first glance you kind of wonder if that makes it anti-synergistic with the strategy, but it doesn't end up really mattering at all. But yeah, crazy powerful card. Those are 6 points per copy, and are one of the only pointed cards in the actual engine of this deck's archetype. Next, for the Resonators, we have 3 Soul. This is the only Resonator you really want to normal summon. Searches a level 4 lower Fiend on summon. We have 1 of Crimson, which is crazy to think we're down to 1 of this guy. The deck profiles I used to do on this strategy way back in the day when it was Rogue would always play 3 of this guy because he is like Cyber Dragon. He can special summon himself out of your hand if you control no monsters. And if you control exactly just a Dark Dragon Synchro, you can special summon 2 Resonators out of the deck with his effect, which is a crazy powerful effect. So we do weave Crimson into our combos a lot of the time, but he's not as necessary as he used to be. So the fact that this guy is down to 1 is just unbelievable to me. 1 of the Darkness Resonator, the new one like we talked about. You reveal RDA in your extra deck, and you special this guy out of your hand for free. Gives you an additional normal summon of a Resonator. It's usually what you're going to be searching off of the Power of Ice Dragon. And then he has another effect to modulate his level and some other Resonators on the field to level 1. And that only really matters if you're trying to make Hypernova, but we actually are not playing Hypernova in this build, and I'll talk about that when we get there. And then I'm also playing 2 Vision and 2 Synchron. Now, on further testing, you could probably cut one of the Synchron Resonators and just play 1. But the thing about these 2, why they are 2 apiece, is you are going to see each one as part of your combos, but they don't suck to hard open. They are both extenders from hand if you have them in your opening hand. So seeing them in your opening hand is not terrible, and Synchron Resonator is not a hard once per turn with the add back effect. So being able to use this guy multiple times is pretty good. But we usually summon this one like out of the deck with Crimson or something like that. So you could potentially cut one of the Synchrons, but I don't know what you would play in its place. Probably another piece of 0-point non-engine is the only thing I could think of. So I'm pretty happy with these ratios of Resonators. And now on to the other non-tuners. Of course, we have the Bone Archfiend, which is essential for this strategy. I hope we get a ultra rare upgrade of this in that Magnificent Monster set or whatever. But this guy is also a good normal summon, and there is a combo where if you do not open Power of Ice Dragon, but you do open this guy, you can normal summon it, activate his effect to Foolish Vision Resonator, and then use Vision Resonator's graveyard effect to search Crimson Gaia. Then Crimson Gaia gets you to another card, and that is actually a really powerful combo as well. So this guy is technically a better combo starter on normal summon than even Crimson Resonator is. Just because of how it gets that card into rotation like that. And then the level modulation is really critical. So being able to go up a level to 5 means you can tune it with a 3 for an 8. Or you can reduce it down to a 3, tune it with a 3 for a 6. Make Red Rising, revive the Synchron, etc., etc. We are playing the one Fiend Piece Golem. Some people don't like this card. It is one of my favorite pieces of support in this new wave. I feel like this is the apology for Bone Archfiend not mentioning RDA in its card text. This guy does mention RDA in his card text, and again, it's just an extender that can modulate its level, so he can modulate himself down to a 4 or a 3, or he can stay a 5. So all those purposes that I mentioned that Bone Archfiend serves, he can serve as well. The one thing that makes Bone Archfiend better, again, is the ability to Foolish a monster. So it technically searches you a card with the effect of Vision Resonator, and it can be a non-tuner body twice, because you really want to, like in the old combos of this deck, you want to be in a position where you can normal summon this guy, and then summon it back again later in your combo with its other effect to special summon it by sending a card from your hand or field to the graveyard. And there are combos in which we don't even have to do that. So its ability to revive itself is kind of extension if you get interrupted, which is really nice. And then the other non-tuner that I'm playing is the Flame Crime. So I have cut Obsessive Oovaloop, and I have cut Wandering King Wildwim. And the reason we're playing Red Lotus King Flame Crime is you could either play him or Wandering King Wildwind. They basically serve the same purpose. And Wandering King Wildwind's levels match up easier with a lot of the weird sticky situations you get into. But this card is technically extension, because when you synchro with it, it will Foolish Red Rain. And then you can add the Red Rain from your graveyard back to your hand. So it effectively searches this card, and you can add this card to your end board. I think if you are not playing Flame Crime, you probably should also not play this, or it should just be like a side deck card, because it's not searchable otherwise. It doesn't mention RDA, but you can basically guarantee access to it with this package. So I think that it is a pretty good card, pretty good inclusion. There are situations where if you, God forbid, you're playing against a deck that plays like Droll or something, and you know you're about to get Drolled or whatever, you can like Crimson for this guy, special it, make Red Rising, revive the Crimson, or revive the Soul Resonator. Yeah, normal Soul, search this guy, make Red Rising, revive the Soul, make Abyss, and then set this off of this effect. And that's already like a decent enough half board, because the Abyss is an omni-negative cards on the field, and then this will banish your opponent's entire board. Since the Abyss is by itself, you don't lose any cards to that. So that's like something you could do if you're trying to play like ultra conservatively, but usually we don't have to go for a line like that. And then we are playing Chaos Dragon Legionnaire. I couldn't find my original Soul Fusion secret rare of this, but I know I have it. So we are still going for the line with Crimson Blade Dragon that searches this guy. I just think that the hand rip and getting the extra body on the field to make a Bestial Dispater is too good to cut, even though the Crimson Blade Dragon is 10 points now. So I do still highly recommend playing this package, because I just think the ability to hand rip and giving you such a powerful non-tuner body, it guarantees banished monsters for Dispater. So again, it basically makes the Obsessive Oovaloop irrelevant, and just is such a powerful combo that I think it's worth playing that. We'll talk about how that works later if you're not familiar with it. That's it for the regular monsters. We are playing a fair amount of hand traps. And there's basically two different directions you can go with this deck. So you can either load up on a crazy amount of hand traps and cut Zaylin, who is 12 points now in the extra deck, or you can play the Zaylin and play fewer hand traps. So I am still playing Zaylin, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But for the hand traps, this is what I'm playing right now. So 3 Skullmeister, which is 0 points, and I've talked about this in previous builds of the deck, where because it's a level 4 Fiend, if you hard open Crimson Resonator but no other starters, you can special Crimson Resonator and normal this guy and still be able to go off full combo and everything. You can actually make Red Supernova off of that as your starting combo as well if you absolutely have to. So decent hand trap, 0 points. We're playing 3 DD Crow at 1 point apiece, and 3 Ghost Ogre at 4 points apiece. So if you cut Zaylin, you'd have 12 other points to work with. And again, I really wish we could still play like Fualos and Nibiru in this deck, but I think they are just too heavily pointed to be able to play everything we want. I think we'd have to cut the Crimson Blade Dragon and the Zaylin in order to play Fualos and Nibiru. But if you cut the Zaylin, you could play either... You could play some combination of Valor or Mourner. And I've seen some people I know that ped deck this deck as well that prefer to go up on hand traps and play Mourner. And I do think that is worth considering. But I also really love the flexibility of Zaylin. I think the fact that he can be a tuner or a non-tuner is huge. The level 7 is not particularly awkward, and the extra negate is extremely powerful. So I like him a lot, and I'm still, at the moment, keeping that package. We'll see if I decide to change that later. But I do think that hand traps seem to be the way to go in Genesis. Most decks that are seeing competitive success in Genesis are seeing success because they are playing a large quantity of hand traps and maybe a like 20-point boss monster in the extra deck. They're not playing the like 100-point gimmick cards or the 30-40 point DM staples like your Pot of Great Graceful Charity, Delinquent Duo, etc. Nobody's playing that stuff. They're all just playing like modern hand traps. That is it for the monsters. Onto the spells and traps. Of course, we're playing 3 Resonator Call. Some people were playing 2 of this and 1 Stone Sweeper. Stone Sweeper went to 5 points, so there's 0 reason to play that. It's way too expensive when you can just play this card, but that was apparently also a hit to Cool Tune. 3 Crimson Gaia. So we have a ton of searchers in this deck. It really makes it a lot more consistent. I really love that this got a rarity upgrade in Rarity Collection 5, and I'm waiting on the 3rd Ultra Rare to come in because I'd love to have a playset of Ultra Rare for that. And then 1 Crimson Call. And it's funny that it features Crimson Resonator on there because it feels like that's what they want you to do with this guy. So this lets you add a Resonator if you control a Synchro. So we usually add this off of the Crimson King. But you can also search it off of Crimson Gaia to get another monster as well if you choose to. We are on Forbidden Chalice in the main deck. This is a new change with the points update where this card went to 1 point a copy, which I think is perfect. It's one of the cards I'm the most excited about playing in Genesys format. I think it is the perfect power level for Genesys, and single point interaction quick play spells are some of the most fun cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! So Book of Moon, MST, My Body as a Shield, Forbidden Chalice, and Forbidden Lance are just some of the most fun and skillful and fair cards that the game has ever had. They get a little bit crazy when you get to Forbidden Crown and Forbidden Droplet, but we won't go there. So this is a good going first or second card, because if you're going first and you make your end board, you can set this, and then it's another monster negate on your opponent's turn. You can activate it while it's set. And it's also a card we can use to chain to for Zaylin and Abyss. So if your opponent activates like Dark Ruler No More, you can chain this and then chain Abyss to negate the Dark Ruler No More. So having a quick play activatable back row card is very important to this deck because of the way Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss works and the way that Zaylin works. So I think that Forbidden Chalice is absolutely worth it to play in the main deck, especially because the whole playset is only 3 points. And that's it for our main deck points and our spells. So we are main decking all 3 traps. So Red Zone we want to see from our Crimson Gaia as part of our setup combo. It is very, very good. The special summoning a dragon back from Banish is crazy. And the pop is really good as well. So if you trigger the effect of Crimson King to get it to float into the vanilla RDA, then Red Zone's pop is then live, which is really, really strong. The King's Resonance, when I first read this card, I thought it was pretty bad, and I still don't really love it. You're never really quite getting to the Book of Eclipse style effect down here, which is the one that you want. But the easiest one to get to, the one that you can do for 1 summon, lets you revive a dragon synchro from Banish or Grave, which is really, really good. So again, if your opponent tries to clear through your board, you can just bring one of your guys back, which I think is really good. So it also works with, let's say, the Scar Red Dragon Archfiend that floats into the original. You can always bring back one of those 2 if you use them for Synchro Summon over the course of your turn, and push for more damage if that's something you can accomplish. And then I talked about Red Rain. I have talked about this card numerous times on this channel in the past, where I don't love Red Rain. I feel like it conflicts with your end board, but the fact that it is technically searchable in this build off of Flame Crime, you can send it from deck to grave off of Flame Crime, and then when you do your Synchro Summon, it comes from the grave back to your hand, and you can just set it. But I would probably side this out if I was going second. But yeah, I think all these traps are really good, and modern decks need to have layered forms of interaction. Layered end boards is the way to go, and those traps help facilitate that quite a bit. Okay, now on to the extra deck. So I am still playing 3 Red Rising Dragon. There are some people who have cut this down to 2, and you probably could get away with it because there are a lot of combos that do not even use this guy at all. But the argument that I've heard is the cards you're going to be putting in there instead of them are just flex spots. And I'm like, I really don't want to lose access to this card because it fixes so many game states and lets you synchro climb if you on little card investment. So I think having multiple of them in the extra deck is worth it. And again, 2 is probably fine, but I cannot think of a card that I would rather play in that spot if I cut it down to 2. So I think that it's better to have 3 than to have flex spots, but we'll talk about that as we go through here. So I'm still playing 3 Red Rising, and I am playing 3 7s, which is crazy to say. So we're playing Kui Belt still. It's just a pop on summon. It's good in a simplified game state, and we're still playing the Zaylin, and we're still playing the Crimson Blade Dragon. So Zaylin, I've talked about. It is a negate as long as it is a chain link 3 or higher, basically. So like, if a card is being activated in response to another card, you can negate either card. So let's say your opponent goes like Nibiru or whatever, and you chain Forbidden Chalice targeting one of your own monsters, you can then chain Lazaelin and negate the Nibiru. Same thing with like Dark Ruler No More and stuff like that. Well, I don't think you can negate. Yeah, I think you can, because you're not activating this in response to the Dark Ruler No More. Not the best negate in the world, but still pretty versatile. And then the fact that it can be used as a tuner or a non-tuner, and it's a level 7, means that you can have that extra protection on your board while you're comboing, and it still make whatever you want, basically. And then the Crimson Blade Dragon lets you add the Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, which lets you guaranteed cards in Banish for Abyssal Dissipator. So the Abyssal Dissipator's pop is online. Lets you use Abyssal Dissipator to revive a card and extend further, and it creates a body with itself when it summons itself, and it rips a card out of your opponent's hand. So I think it's a really, really powerful combo, and I still continue to play it, even though the points were added to those guys. 10 points on the Crimson King as well. Very powerful card, searches a card that mentions RDA, and if you open with Power Vice Dragon, chances are you're going to be going through this guy on your first turn. And his quick effect to tribute himself to special summon the original Red Dragon Archfiend out of your extra deck. That original Red Dragon Archfiend can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and it becomes 6k, is awesome. And it's a great way to, again, let's say your opponent activates some kind of board breaker, or summons their monster. Let's say you want to negate their monster, you can chain this guy as Chainlink 2 to their monster, and then chain Zaelin as Chainlink 3 and negate their monster. And then this guy, the ability to summon that Red Dragon Archfiend out of the extra deck is way more powerful than it seems. So you can use this guy as material after you've done your search off of him, but I usually leave him on the end board. I think leaving him on the end board is actually super powerful. And then this is another kind of controversial decision. So I'm still playing 2 of the Scar Red and 2 of the original OG Red Dragon Archfiend. So I also love the rarity upgrade with this guy from Rarity 5 as well. And of course I got to rep the Ghost RDA. So a lot of people are playing 1 Scar Red and 2 original. They want to have the 1 original to summon off of Scar Red, and they want a second one to summon off of Crimson King, which does make sense. I'm playing 2 and 2 because of the same reasons, but also if it is turn 3 or later, I want to threaten my opponent's board with that board wipe when Scar Red is sent to the graveyard. So the fact that if you send Scar Red to the graveyard, it floats into the original and destroys all your opponent's attack position monsters is huge. And it's one of the reasons why this deck is really good at going second with its own engine, because there are effects like that are frankly just not even necessary as part of your combo, that just casually board wipe your opponent while you're doing it, which is just so awesome. Again, if you're already going to have flex spots anyway, I think 2 and 2 is the way to go here, and it does come up for me quite a bit. But you could obviously like cut one of these and cut the one of the Red Risings and play the Hypernova and regular Red Nova package. But I just don't love that yet. I'll complain about Hypernova at the end here, but yeah, I still love this package a lot. We're no longer playing Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. He's gone, guys. We're also not playing Scarlight anymore, which breaks my heart. You could also, again, cut one of the Red Rising Dragons and play Scarlight. Scarlight might come up in a simplified game state. We're not playing Void Ogre Dragon, because Void Ogre Dragon's negate is never going to be live. If you have 0 cards in your hand, then you're in a pretty much unwinnable game state anyway. So Void Ogre Dragon's negate is not going to get you there. We're not playing Draco Berserker. I guess we could play Draco Berserker, but I haven't really experimented with that yet. He is 0 points though. But yeah, Abyss, we're still playing our original High-Speed Riders version of Abyss, 20 points. Abyssal Dissipator, which is 10 points. These are the most important monsters as part of your end board. So a 9, a 10, and we're also playing an 11 in Stormbane Dragon to Stormbim. So these are the cards you generally want on your end board. Abyss, as we've talked about, is an Omni-Negate for any face-up card on the field. So how it works with cards like Red Zone and Cosmic Cyclone and Forbidden Chalice is if your opponent activates something like Dark Ruler no more, and as long as you have a back row that is chainable, in that moment you can chain that back row and then activate Abyss as Chainlink 3 and target the face-up Dark Ruler that is still resolving. So you can't activate monster effects directly to Dark Ruler, but you can do it in that orientation. And so having a layered back row like that is what makes Abyss so good. It harkens back to like the 2022 Adventure Dragon Link era deck, which I loved playing so much. So Dissipator again is a quick effect pop or negate, depending on if you have something banished or if your opponent has something banished. And you can special summon back one of your banished dragons, or any of your banished monsters, and keep extending, which is awesome. I use that to, and with the Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, you can basically cafeteria pick what you want banished, so that it can later be brought back with this, which I think is really powerful. And then the Destorbim is a really good board breaker. You can banish dark monsters from your graveyard that cannot be normal summoned or set to destroy monster, or to banish monsters your opponent controls, which is awesome because you can get rid of your synchros, you can get rid of the Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, and banish monsters your opponent controls, and it's a really, really powerful quick effect. Making him in a simplified game state when your opponent has more cards than you do makes this a quick effect, which is really good as an end board piece. But typically if you make him as part of your end board, it's kind of overkill because he doesn't really do anything when your opponent is playing into him. His effect is not live unless your opponent controls more cards than you do, and if your opponent controls more cards than you do after you've set up your board going first on turn one, then looks like you're getting yourself into a losing situation. But there is a combo where you can make all three of these guys plus Crimson King, which I think is pretty good. But this is the best 11 we could play, better than like Star Raider or anything like that. So we're definitely keeping him in that spot. Very, very powerful new card to add to the Dark Dragon Synchro arsenal for RDA. And the last card is Red Supernova. So Red Supernova basically used to be the build around for RDA, and we can still make this guy. I think making him now is a little bit win more, but he does kind of win the game on his own. The fact that he banishes your opponent's entire board when they try to do something is very powerful. A lot of decks have a hard time recovering for that. A lot of decks that require a piece of back row for their combo, like the Archmage field spell or other continuous spells, field spells, stuff like that. Really, really powerful for that reason. And he can banish himself, and then you can revive him from banish with the red zone or the King's Resonance. So you can recycle him, use his effect multiple times, or just bring his massive body back on the field after doing so. Because he's still probably going to be like 7k with all the tuners in the graveyard after you've done everything to establish him. The problem, like I said, is it's a lot harder to integrate him into your end board, but you probably would rather not have him and just have a simple board of like Crimson King, Abyss, Zaylin, and Dissipator, like any combination of those, plus back row, than you would this guy. And the reason for that is the kinds of board breakers that are played in Genesys. Sometimes it's like Dark Hole and stuff like that, but a lot of times it's Ultimate Slayer, because Ultimate Slayer is still only 1 point. And you can't respond to Ultimate Slayer with monster effects. He's not immune to Ultimate Slayer, so I had an opponent where they fooed me, and they drew into their entire playset of Ultimate Slayers and shuffled back my whole board because I had like him and Abyss and a bunch of other guys on the field, but I had no back row. So I couldn't chain the back row and use the Abyss interaction like I just mentioned. So you don't want to rely on this guy as much as you used to. But I want to complain about Hypernova really quick. So you're telling me that you require 4 tuners to summon Hypernova, who, again, is an even bigger body and has an even more potent banish effect, which includes your opponent's graveyard, which I understand is very powerful, where banishing your opponent's entire graveyard can absolutely be a game ender against certain decks, for sure. But why in the world is Hypernova not a towers? It requires 5 materials your entire board to make him, and it's worse than Lunalight Liger Dancer, which can be cheated out with heavy polymerization. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's not like you're going to cheat that guy out with Crimson Dragon in this format, because it doesn't work that way, and Crimson Dragon's 80 points anyway. So It's a little bit frustrating to me that like Hypernova is not a towers when it could have been. It still is not completely immune to your opponent's cards, and is so much harder to make than this guy. It's just completely unforgivable. And the fact that it's floating effect, like it doesn't summon itself back, it summons the original Red Nova, which means it demands 2 extra deck spots. And Red Nova, even though it will also have probably like 6 or 7,000 attack, it is bad. Like original Red Nova is not that good compared to Supernova or Hypernova. Its protection is way worse. So maybe if Hypernova floated down into Supernova, it would be worth it, because then I wouldn't have to allocate an additional extra deck slot. But I digress. This guy has a new full art, which is out right now, which is pretty cool, but I'm still playing the original Ultra Rare from Ghost in the Past. Love this card to death. One of my favorite cards in the entire game. And Hypernova, in spite of being really cool, does not power creep it. But again, if you want to play the Hypernova package, I've had people swear that it is good in very niche circumstances, and it's won them games. So again, you could cut one of the Red Risings, and you could cut one of the Scar Reds and play that package, or you could cut Kui Belt and play that package. There is a little bit more flexibility in this extra deck than you would think. The main things in this extra deck that are not flexible that you have to have is at least 1 Red Rising, 2 RDA, Crimson King, Abyss, Dispater. Those are the mandatory things. And from there's a little bit of flexibility, but there's very few options that are like objectively better than what we're playing right now, or the other cards that I've mentioned. But like I said, you don't want to be on Bane, you don't want to be on Void Ogre, you don't want to be on like the other hot reds and stuff like that. You don't really care. So although I'm thinking about the card Champion's Pulse that was released in the new Battles of Legend, because that card does mention RDA, and it's searchable, so obviously it's searchable, and that card seems interesting. Let me know if you guys have tried that card. I'd be interested in checking it out. Lastly, we have the side deck. The side deck is probably not completely optimal, but I like it. It is working pretty well for my locals. There are some cards that people have shown me, like Vidos is apparently a really good side deck card. I only own 1 copy of Vidos, so it's not as good as it could be. I'll try to get a playset at some point and consider that. But here's what I'm playing for the side deck, and again, it's probably not optimal, but I like it. So we're playing the package of the 3 Kaijus and the 3 Interrupted Slumber. So this is basically just a worse Dark Hole. I think Kaijus are still pretty good in this format because there are still Towers monsters that are very hard to out, or Omni Negates that are hard to out, like, or not necessarily Omni Negates, but powerful end board bosses that you would love to be able to out with a Kaiju. And then the ability to destroy all monsters on the field. You know, really probably what this is going to do is just force out a piece of your opponent's end board interaction if you're going second. It's like one of those must negate cards. So it's probably going to just trade 1 for 1 with a point of interaction on your opponent's board, but it is still worth it, and it's 0 points. So I don't think it's definitely not nearly as good as Illusion Gate, and definitely not nearly as good as Dark Hole either. But if we're playing the Kaijus anyway, we might as well play these, because we were probably going to be playing some combination of Kaijus anyway. So really this is not a 6-card package, it's a 3-card package, because previously this would probably be like 2 Gamma Seal and Radion and then 3 Dark Hole. But instead it's this, and it's all 0 points. So we'll see how we feel about that. Next, this is points 99 and 100 are in the 2 Cosmic Cyclone right here, and because we're maxing out at 100 right here in the side deck, the 3rd card is Hey Trunade. I don't love that, but if you're playing against a heavy trap based deck like Labyrinth, or even like Archmage that sets up like their counter trap and stuff like that, again, this is basically just forcing out that back row to be like, you either activate it now or you lose it. And again, it makes this card one of those must negates that they have to respond to or they lose everything. And then the Cosmic Cyclone, I've already talked about the utility of quick play spells in this deck, where you want to be able to have something for Abyss to respond to. Banishing spells is very good. Again, a lot of my testing group, one of my best friends, one tricks Archmage, and the deck has an absolutely devious field spell and a normal trap that it searches and a counter trap that it searches, and so this card is very, very important to have in that matchup. But again, even if your opponent activates something like Dark Ruler No More or Forbidden Droplet, and then if it's Forbidden Droplet and they don't send a spell, you can chain this to it and then a Chain Abyss and negate it. So I just think the versatility of Cosmic Cyclone is worth playing at 1 point per copy when we were at 98 points anyway. We're playing 3 of this card as a 0-point board breaker. I'm waiting on 2 more copies of the ultra rare from Rarity Collection 5 to come in, but so this is a very bad version of Book of Eclipse, and it is 0 points, so we're trying it. I think it's a decent board breaker. Your opponent having face down monsters into RDA is crazy because of the original RDA's effect. Crimson Guy also helps with that interaction a little bit, but I think this card is okay. Again, it's just like I described with some of the other board breakers. It's going to be a situation of your opponent has to respond to this or everything gets flipped down. So I do think it has the potential to be pretty powerful, but most likely what's going to happen is it's going to just trade 1-for-1 with one of your opponent's points of interaction. And then the last side deck card is something we side in going first in game 3, or game 2, I suppose. And it is Gravity Collapse. So I wanted a card that makes our end board stronger. I was thinking about Breakthrough Skill. I was thinking about Manadium Reframing, which Manadium Reframing is basically just Solemn Judgment if you control a Synchro. And I still think that card is pretty defensible, but basically what you have here with Gravity Collapse is a Summon Negate and a turn skip because your opponent can't summon anything after they activate this card. Now, I do think that this card doesn't answer board breakers. So if your opponent tries to nuke your field or whatever, and you don't have anything to respond to with it, this card doesn't help there, whereas Manadium Reframing would. Manadium Reframing is basically, it's like Solemn Judgment or Solemn Strike in a way, because it's Spell Trap or Monster effect, whereas this is negate a summon and your opponent can't summon for the rest of the turn, which again, crazy strong. It is a turn skip, but this card does not respect the board breakers that your opponent is going to be siding in when they are going second in game 3. So I guess just be mindful of that, but I think it's too powerful not to at least try, and a lot of people I've heard have had success with it. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this deck profile. There are so many combos that almost should be a separate video, so I'm not going to go into that right now. This video has been long enough as it is. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.